I'm like, but no air conditioning. Like I said, he's like, no problem. I couldn't believe it. I felt so sorry for this hypothetical, because the kid's not even there, which I think is a shitty thing to do. If you don't, you should bring the kid with you who's getting the car. Like it's my cousin Scott. Like he didn't get his choice whenever he got one of his cars when he was like 17. And when you're 17, you want a car that you can put a girl in, or a car that you can put a bunch of friends in. That's what I've noticed and what I experienced. He wanted a Camaro. Some guys want like a Tahoe or something they can throw all their buddies in, something like that. It's usually one of those, or maybe a pickup truck. He really wanted a Camaro, and his dad came back with a Ford Taurus, with the wavy side and that baby blue color. He literally drove it into
the automobile right there.
He was so angry, and this is not a family of means, okay? He drove it into water and totaled it 2 months later, and said it was an accident. There was there was a big heavy rainstorm. The creek was overflowing across a little road, and he just drove straight into the water, rolled the window down, swam out the car. It was that high, like it was above the windowsill, and he admitted it to me when we were grown men. Like a few years ago, he told me this. This happens when he's 17, and we're like 27 years old. And I was like, remember that time that there was that flash flood and you got caught up in it? And he's like, Kyle, I drove that thing into that water on purpose. I was getting no pussy. Nobody wanted to get into that fucking Ford Taurus, Kyle. I couldn't do it anymore.
Statute of limitations on insurance fraud had long since passed.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a guy in my high school who had a truck every bit as bad as the Indian one you sold.
Yeah.
And but this guy was just like God's gift to women. He was just natural. He was a football player, and everything about him was what girls like. And he wasn't a close friend of mine or anything, but he saw me and he pulled up. He's like, "Woody, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm great. What are you up to?" He's got a load of women in the back. And he, like, even with them there, he's like, "Oh, it's fucking awesome. Girls." I throw a 6-pack in there, all 4 of them are drunk.
They're like, we sure are. We sure are.
And we're ready to
the
do
windows are
anything.
dark. No one even knows we're in here. You could do anything.
Yeah, it wasn't an invitation. It just was.
Yeah.
He was just showing off how cool he was, I think.
Did I tell you about the insurance fraud Bugatti that the guy drove purposefully into the lake last time?
Oh no, you
No, you
don't know
didn't
it.
tell us
Yeah,
all
okay.
about that.
Because I was
the
probably
one that
still
kept
trying to
changing hands
find-
over and over, and nobody could
Yes.
deal with like the repairs. I think I watched your YouTube video about it, so I'll shut up.
Okay. Because it was about the same time I think that I was on last time I was trying to buy it. And it was the same situation. This guy had bought a Veyron for like 900 grand, but had it insured for 2.2 million and couldn't sell it. And he drove it into the Galveston Bay. And he claimed that a pelican had flown in front of him and that he'd been distracted and that just turned the wheel and went straight into the water. But there happened to be a kid camera phone filming in the oncoming lanes, and you hear him say, "I think that's a Lambo, dude." And at that moment, the thing just careens into the water. And he puts it on YouTube. And this guy, his insurance company sees it, and they're like, "Well, there's no pelican in front of you."
Oh no!
And so he went to prison for 10 months for insurance fraud for it.
Whew.
And in that time, he had filed an insurance claim on it, obviously, and the insurance company had paid a local shop, which was owned by a friend of his, to disassemble it and make an estimate. And that friend, while he was in prison, mechanics leaned the car and got the insurance company to give it to him. And then he had sold it to this guy who had been laundering money through a dealership in Vegas, I think. That guy either went to jail or went bankrupt or both. So he ended up getting the car back again. And then the guy who drove it originally got out of prison and was brokering the car for sale on Facebook, taken apart, completely disassembled.
Yeah.
And and he was trying to sell it for like, it was 300 grand, which is a lot, but it's $1 million car. But it's, in a million pieces, right? He said it was in a 3,500 square foot warehouse, totally filling up every inch. It was that much apart. And I think I went back and forth with him trying to buy it because it'd be like the perfect YouTube rebuild car ever,
Yeah.
but it probably never would have run. And he ended up selling it to somebody else. But I mean, it's a crazy situation. I mean, if they hit a roadblock, maybe we'll try to buy it again. But one of those epic
meet 'em in
insurance
the middle.
fraud things. I've tried.
That seems so scary.
I would have gotten away with it. You know why? Because my first instinct was Pelican. You should have went with Yellow Jacket.
That's it.
Bees.
Or snake. You could have said somebody threw a snake in there, like anything. I would take a snake bite rather than 10 months in state prison.
Yellow
No, I like
Jackets
the
are
bee thing.
pretty much invisible. Like there'd be
Yeah.
no camera proof there was no Yellow Jacket.
Sure.
It worked in Dumb and Dumber.
It
Oh,
did.
right.
That would be such a scary proposition. Getting that car for God knows, like $500,000. I don't know, as it sits, whatever that it's worth. But then like hoping that you could get it back together, because that doesn't seem like your average like shade tree mechanic reassembly.
Right.
That seems like you need a fucking rocket scientist there next to you, or an actual Bugatti mechanic who's certified, and then getting the
Right.
parts.
Yeah, they're insane. I mean, the tires are $22,000, $5,500 each, and you have to have them installed either in France or there's one place in California that can do it. An annual service is $21,000. It has 12 or 14 radiators, and all of them are rusted because it was like brackish water. So, the trend amongst automotive YouTube channels is these salvage car rebuilds, and it's not really what we do. Guys like me and Rob sit around telling car stories, but this is the Super Bowl of rebuilding some terrible example of a really, really cool car. So it makes sense in that regard, but you can't really fund it with sponsors or with the views. Obviously, they're not that valuable. But I have always loved Bugattis.
Yeah, Bugatti would have to almost sponsor that video. Just like,
and they have disavowed all knowledge of this car. They will
Yeah.
not help you or sell you
Yeah.
parts out of them.
Yeah, they don't want a part of that one.
yeah, I guess not.
They're